It was the Thomas Castellanos show at Michie Stadium in West Point as the Eagles quarterback scores the game winner with 28 seconds left on the clock. It was exciting. It was wet. It was sloppy. We're getting into all that on today's show.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
As Al Davis once said, just win, baby. BC wins 27-24. This is AJ Black of Eagle Insider and your host of Locked On Boston College. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs help you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. It was the one-half Eagles again as BC had a two-possession lead going into halftime, watched it dwindle, fell behind, but again, it was Thomas Castellanos with the heroics at the end as he scored 4 touchdowns in this game to win. BC wins in against Army 27-24 and enter the bye week 3-3 and have to feel pretty good after that. With me to talk about this at the last second, we grabbed Mitch Wolf of Eagle Insider, our staff writer. Mitch, how's it going?
It's going well. If you had told me that, we talked about how this game could go any number of ways. But at the end of the day, BC out-armying Army on the road in the middle of a rainstorm was not exactly the outcome I expected.
Yeah, me either. And, it was mistakes by Army. There was penalties by Army. And BC just owned the time of possession. I saw at the end, I think they had 35 minutes of possession in this game. They controlled this game from for most of it, other than that the chunk in the second half. What were some of your big takeaways and big moments in this game, Mitch?
So I'll preface this by saying that I'll need to kind of go back and watch what Army did. Because on my first watch, it didn't seem like they were doing anything super differently on offense that allowed them to start scoring a lot of points in the second half. I think Army's offense and kind of their whole offensive philosophy is that just be patient, keep pressing, and it'll happen. Like, it's not like they made some great change. I mean, they started throwing the ball more because the rain stopped, and BC was, I think, correctly more keyed in on stopping the run, and that allowed for some big passing plays by them, to the point that, again, in a crazy way, Army actually outpassed BC by a few yards. So Army threw for 105 yards, 10 of 13, and BC threw for 73 yards, 4 of 9 with an interception. So, that's kind of crazy, but I just think that was kind of their philosophy. Is like, okay, but they were more comfortable by not passing the ball in the first half. And to their credit, I thought BC played awesome in the first half. Their only points they allowed were off a Castellanos interception with a big return, which put the defense in a short field, and they were able to get a stop and force a field goal. But in terms of the big plays, I mean, obviously Thomas Castellanos is a huge day running the ball. Some of it was scrambles, most of it was designed rushes. A lot of times he was able to find the second level and get some big chunks when he wasn't being tackled by referees. And then Patrick Garwo had a huge day too. Unfortunately he didn't get the end zone. That was kind of, I feel kind of bad for him, after having as big a day as he did. I felt like he deserved at least a touchdown, but 2 big chunk runs. I think both of them coming in the second half. And by the time you got into the second half, BC's offense was really just leaning hard on Army's defensive front, and they were able to get, 4 to 5 yards a clip. And, the one drive that they had where they had 2 big penalties that set them back, and then they couldn't get anything going after that. But other than that, I mean, they were able to move the ball pretty much at will on the ground. Obviously some hiccups in the passing game due, I would say, mostly to the rain. And then Castellanos' frankly dumb interception. But, going down this final drive of the game, you have a few key conversions on 3rd and 4th down to keep the drive alive. I thought they handled that very well in terms of time management, forcing Army to use their timeouts, get down there. And honestly, when I was watching, I thought, honestly, if you have to, just kneel to make Army use their timeouts.
Yep.
And then if you can't convert on 3rd or 4th and goal to get a touchdown and win the game, then you don't deserve to win. And that's fair. But then they were able to convert. I think there were like 28 seconds left, and again, when you force Army to have to throw to win the game, they're just not going to be able to do that. So
they looked like a FCS team when they had to throw the ball. Like they just.
I mean, credit to Bryson.
It's not a knock on them. It's BC forced them into a style that wasn't their own.
Yeah, and I mean, credit to Bryson Day. Like he hit the plays when he needed to. He had that one drop down near the goal line, I think, in the first half. But and on all those plays, it's not like he's sitting back there with tons of time to throw and threading a dart between three defenders. Like all those big passing plays was, we're going to run this super hard play action where we really suck the defenders up, and then you can hit them on a guy that the defense perceived as blocking. And that's, I mean, I don't think you can really get mad at BC for that, because that's how they planned it. They're like, we know Army's going to run on 70 to 75% of their plays, so we're going to expect a run on a lot of these, and that's very fair. And I was very glad that the refs made the right call on that illegal forward pass, because I feel like people would be very mad at the defenders and coaching for like, oh, why didn't you teach him to go with the pitch man? It's like, they're tackling the guy, but he's past the first down. Like, they're making the right decision by making that tackle when the guy is clearly past the first down, and then he obviously makes an illegal forward pass. And that really just changed the whole tenor of the game, because Army gets backed up, they lose all momentum, and then their punter absolutely shanks a ball. And, I said that I thought special teams would play a big role in this game, and I would say it did. Army has that big kick return to give them a score. Lewis Bond almost has a muff, and then the big punt shank by Army gives BC a short field, and they're able to pretty much drain out the clocks and score a touchdown with not much time left.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw what the weather looked like when they turned because I didn't make the trip to Michie Stadium, when they turned on the cameras and showed what it looked like there, I was like, oh God.
Yeah, and I saw a lot of people saying like, oh, why are they even throwing the ball? And I think they tried on the first two drives just to like see if they could do it, and I mean, honestly, they couldn't. It was just too wet.
Thomas Castellanos had that one pass where he couldn't even throw the ball forward.
Yeah. So, you probably want to see them make that adjustment quicker, but I'm not going to get too mad for them being like, hey, we want to see if we can at least move the ball through the air, because again, the whole key of this game that we said was scoring fast, was scoring quickly, early and often. So, I respect them for trying to, see if they get the passing game going in the first 2 or 3 drives. And then after that, they just said, no, we can run the ball and we're going to stick with that. And I mean, to their credit, it really worked. BC averaged 0.19 EPA per rush, which is in the 80th percentile. They had a 13% explosive player, which is the 91st percentile, which is pretty incredible. And they only had 9% of their runs stuffed for, I think that's 2 yards, 0 yards or less, which is 9% stuff rate from Army's defense in the 0th percentile. So, they were able to really just lean on the run game. And I mean, I'm really intrigued to see, I think the weather obviously played a huge factor in this game, but I'm really intrigued to see how this game serves as a blueprint for maybe how BC is going to change their offense for the second half of the season, because there's been this kind of dialogue about Thomas Castellanos, and people are like, oh, some people are like, oh, he's great. He makes these big plays. And I'm like, well, he's not really that efficient. And I'm kind of somewhere in the middle where I'm like, yeah, he has obviously some ability to make some explosive plays. I'm talking more specifically about him as a passer.
Yep.
Because obviously his running ability is huge, but he does make these mistakes in the passing game. And at this point in his career, given that I think this was his 5th career start or 6th career start, I'm willing to give him a little bit of leeway for some of these mistakes, especially in an absolute monsoon. But, if he's a quarterback where, you need to bring him along a little more slowly as a passer, but you can lean on this kind of almost an Army-esque offense. We were talking about this during the game. You mentioned like a Tyler Murphy offense where he's just a big running threat. I think you can do that because of how strong this offensive line is, how strong the running backs are. We saw Garwo carry the load for most of this game, and then they brought in Robichaux as the closer to the end of the game because he's just such a powerful hammerback that can convert pretty much anything that's 3 yards or shorter.
So are we going to have a Mitch eating some hubris moment here with John Pupel making a big play to end the game, and it seemed to me like Jack Conley had a big game too.
I'll say Jack. I mean, again, I'll say Jack Conley has always been a better run blocker than he has been a pass blocker, and they didn't pass that much. So I'll have to go back and rewatch to see how he was. But and again, I did say, if he has to start any game this season, it would be Army or Holy Cross that I would prefer.
Yep.
Pupil.
He's been a valuable player. Like he
had a good play to end the game, and again, this is a game where he can have a lot of success because he's not being asked to cover in pass coverage, and he's not he's not the worst athlete on the field because it's Army's offense. But
he's also the third string tackle at this point too.
Oh, I was switching over to Pupil at this point. But the point stands for pretty much either of them is that they're playing a less athletic opponent that is going to give them less trouble in those instances. But yeah, I mean, I'll eat some crow there. But
credit to it at least.
Yeah, for what it's worth.
All right, in a moment, we're going to continue our conversation and we'll get into some more points from the game. Thank you all for joining us. Now, let's chat about LinkedIn. Your job is as important as it gets when you're looking for a new hire. With LinkedIn, these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs help you find the right people for your team faster and for free. So go on to LinkedIn, add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. With simple tools like screening questions, it makes it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs help you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Hold on a second. This is Locked On BC. I am your host, AJ Black. And I'm having a little, oh, there we go. My microphone just went dead. And I'm joined by Mitch Wolf. And we're talking about this weekend's game, today's game against Army, as BC improves to 3-3. Mitch, are there any players you want to talk about specifically from today's game?
I mean, Castellanos is obviously the big one. Again, not his best day throwing the ball, and some of that wasn't his fault. Some of it was that interception was really stupid. Really no way around that, but they smartly just kind of threw the passing game out because they knew it just wasn't going to work. Running game, Castellanos was huge. Garwo had a good day. Alex Broom, a little hit or miss. Kyrie Show came in on the final drive and had some good conversions. Offensive line played really well. That one of those big runs by Garwo was that pin pull center guard sweep that they run a few times for big gains. I think I might kind of do a special feature on that for Eagle Insider because it's a really cool play to break down. So I might kind of do a feature.
Is that the one Kendall pulled on? And
I think, yeah. So the pin pull center guard sweep is the pull of the pin pull is the center and the guard. They pull out, and then the tackle and the tight end pin the other defensive lineman inside, and you pull those two out. And him and Mahogany have had some real big successes on those plays. Offense, not a lot to say from the receiver standpoint. I mean, good on Jaden Williams for catching that really tough pass by the sideline. He's obviously not been one of our favorite players in this podcast, but good to see him make a big play when he had to there. On defense, it's tough to evaluate the defense because, again, they were so good in the first half and just so bad in the second half. And again, I don't think the process was necessarily bad in the second half. It's just Army's offense was eventually going to break through. And in the second half, when the rain stopped, they had the opportunity to open up the offense a little more with a few more option plays, get the players on perimeter. But still, I felt that BC did a pretty decent job at stopping that. Vinny DePalma had a big game. I think he had 9 total tackles, 6 solos.
You can call that one because you called it the Vinny DePalma game.
Yeah. A lot. And honestly, I'll say this, even to a better extent than I thought, because a lot of it was plays on the perimeter where he had to get out in space and just be disciplined and
I was going to say he played smart football.
And shed some blocks on the outside. I think there was that one play where I think it was him flowing. Well, it would be to his left from the camera point in the offense. The offense is right, where he was flowing with the option and he shed the lead blocker and forced the quarterback to the sideline who pitched it late and then was tackled out of bounds for a minimal gain. And that's really good football by him. And again, it's hard. I'm not going to criticize the defensive backs too much for giving up some of those passing plays because, again, you're keying on the run so hard because that's just how Army's offense works. And I'm willing to take those. And again, when Army has to pass the ball, from a true drop back standpoint, they just couldn't do it. So I'm willing to kind of take some of those L's. And again, because of this offense, you're just not going to see the pass rush do too much. I thought the defensive line did a decent job holding up at the point of attack. and then allowing the linebackers to make some of those plays. And, they didn't really get any tackles for loss, but I thought they honestly did a better job than I even expected of, especially in the first half, keeping Army in those second and long, third and long situations instead of letting up three, and then it's 3rd and 4, and then they can easily convert that on 3rd or 4th down. So, I know the second half was collapse was pretty bad. I'm gonna have to go back and kind of see what things went wrong. But I still think that their process for most of this game was good. I thought it was interesting, kind of the personnel changes they made. You saw a lot of Sione Hala out there. You saw Kari Johnson. I think he started and played the majority of the game at free safety. I don't think you saw much of Cole Batson in this game until the very end when Army had to pass the ball. So I'm kind of intrigued about that decision. And then special teams, you have the missed extra point, which obviously infected the game. I think my one big frustration with the coaching, more so than anything else, was not going for 2 after touchdowns more, because, and I broke this down, I think, in a tweet. I did the math wrong initially, but before BC scored the final touchdown, if they had gone for 2 on each of their previous touchdowns, if they had gotten the touchdowns and then gone for 2 on both times, they would have been able to kick a field goal to take the lead at the very end of the game. If they had made one and not made the other, they would have been able to kick a field goal to tie the game. And if they had not made either, they would have been down by 5, and they would have been in pretty much the same situation that they were to end this game anyways. So I do wish that they had been more aggressive in this, especially in a situation where your offense is succeeding a lot in these, 2 yards or less to go situations where your offensive line has to just bully the defensive line, get a yard of push, and then you can have either Castellanos or Garwo or Robichaux be the hammer to get those 2 yards. So I think that was one thing that I would have liked to see them be more aggressive with, but we saw them be very aggressive on 4th downs again. And that honestly, that's a huge story of this game is BC was 8 of 17 on 3rd down. So just under 50%, but then they were 3 of 4 on 4th down. So you're looking at 11 for 21. So right around 50% on those on those conversion situations. And Army was only 3 for 10 on 3rd downs. Now, part of that was that, especially in the second half, they were able to avoid 3rd downs by getting yards on the early downs. But I would say that the fact of the matter is a lot of the times when BC's defense, especially in the first half, again, the second half was a bit more frustrating, but a lot, and even on the last drive, even if I guess on that play where Bryson Daly's, it was the option, he got the first down, but then threw the ball forward, he was past the first down mark when he threw. So that would have been a first down anyways. So, it's hard to say what exactly would have happened in that drive, but, I don't think this was the defense's most. It wasn't. I would say it wasn't as good as the performance against Virginia last week, because I think Virginia had their first good drive, but after that they needed a turnover to get a touchdown in the Hail Mary. So, and then the defense played pretty well for the rest of that game. This one a little less even. Play great in the first half, don't really play good in the second half. So it's hard to say that they played better, but I think that the game plan, the overarching game plan and approach to trying to stop Army's offense was pretty sound for the majority of this game.
Yeah, I mean, I left feeling like I do about most BC games, where it feels like it was a game of one half. And I enjoyed watching Pat Garwo. This felt like his big game, and it's been a while. And it obviously with the rain and on the road, it wasn't to the extent, but I was in hand when BC played Army last time at home, when Andre Williams ran for 5 touchdowns, and it was obviously a very different system, but it felt a little bit like it wasn't the amount of explosives because of the weather, but it felt like BC again controlled the trenches, especially on offense, and did what they needed to do. And between Garwo and Castellanos, they just did what they needed to do to win this game. And they made the big plays at the end. The defense itself, I thought I credit to Army for making some adjustments that really kind of had BC flabbergasted, but they made the big play at the end of the game. And that illegal forward pass, which I think Mitch and I both had just said, with college refs, you never know what they're going to call.
Yeah. I mean, that was just, the fact that the quarterback was so far past the first down line, and on live watch, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, he's way past, the receiver is way past him. When they did the replay, I was okay, he's really only a yard past him. So, this could be close, and I was at a bar because I don't get that channel on my normal cable package, so I didn't hear the audio for it, but I was a little concerned, but I was like, come on, this is just too obvious. You can't let this stand. And they didn't. And that was, and honestly, like it's funny to look at the numbers because Army was penalized 6 times for 30 yards. And then BC was only penalized 3 times, but for 25 yards. So for almost the same amount. But even then, I think that 2 of those penalties came on that one drive because they had the block in the back and the holding.
Yep.
But other than that, they're pretty stringent. They were pretty disciplined with those. And a lot of those Army penalties, I would say, really hurt them because they had a few false starts on 3rd or 4th and short that put them back.
Because their margin of error is so small.
And again, like the whole thing we talked about is that based on their previous performances, where they were the least penalized team in the country and had the 3rd fewest penalty yards assessed against them, they are normally able to win on those margins against teams that are about as equal in terms of level of talent to them. And even teams that are slightly superior. But, and this was something that I tweeted about for one of the Castellanos touchdowns is that, again, Army has a good defense. They're very schematically sound. They're very disciplined and they tackle well. But at some point, sometimes that athletic talent that a guy like Castellanos has is just going to shine through because he is just so much faster and so much more explosive than the guys that Army has in their defense.
All right. In a moment, Mitch and I are going to read off some of your comments that you have on YouTube. If you're listening along live, add them in. Me and Mitch will react to it live in our final segment. Now, snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. They have all sorts of special deals that are going on, like, can't miss bets and things like that I love getting in on. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. With FanDuel,
AJ, on that, I want to let you know that on that note, Maryland was able to push your plus 20 on that pick against Ohio State.
Woo!
So you did not lose.
That's good. Anywho. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. All right, Mitch, we have some comments and we're going to get into them right now. I'm going to go into our comment section and we'll have our comments for the.
I don't know if you have one picked out, but okay, Peter. Yeah, I mean, the second half collapse was really tough.
So let me read what he said. So Peter Caruso said, "I almost lost faith in BC."
I mean, that's kind of just watching BC every week at this point. But to this game specifically, I mean, I definitely agree that second half was really tough. And again, I definitely want to rewatch this one because, again, I don't really think Army. I think Army was willing to pass the ball a little more, and I think this is kind of one of the situations where they know what we know, what they know, what we. It's one of those things where Army knows that BC is going to stop the run, and Army and BC knows that they need to stop the run against Army. So, you're going to bite hard on some of those. And this goes to the comment by Working Rich, if you can pull that up too.
Where
it's yeah. Nice to see a win, but BC as against Louisville is due. I imagine is so vulnerable to pass attacks. These are very different things. The passing attack for Army is built on, again, being a 70 to 75% run heavy team where the defense is so focused on stopping the run that they will occasionally be vulnerable to explosive passing plays. And honestly, even the passing plays that Army hit were not as explosive as they could have been. Like they were more over the middle of the field, chunk plays, 15 and 20 yards for sure, but they weren't those like 50 to 60 to 70 yard passing plays that, broke BC. It was, they had all their drives were relatively methodical. And I think the process of BC's approaching this team is say we need to focus on stopping the run more than the pass was fair. I think that even though that some of those passing plays were successful, I don't think any of them were a situation where a guy was super like completely busted coverage wide open. It was the guy was open because the defense was focused on stopping the run, so guys were slightly out of position. But you want them in position to stop the run first because the much more likely play is that it is a run play, and that's what you want to stop first. So I kind of get it.
All right. BC football fan says the illegal pass saved our season in Hafley's career. Great win.
Mm-hmm. Yep. A little bit.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and that's Army's quarterback. Honestly, like that was a huge mistake by him. That is equal. I would say that's equal to Castellanos' interception. Just, you had the first down. You did not need to pitch that ball. And granted, like it would have gone for a touchdown if it was a proper pitch, but you could have just taken the first, and they were already winning at that point, right? So if he just takes the first down, there's like 4 or 5 minutes left in the game. They probably can ice that game out just by running the ball, and game is over and they win by 4. So that's just a mistake of him trying to make too big a play, which is similar to what Castellanos was doing earlier in the game when he threw that pick. It's just trying to make too big of a play for the situation.
All right, Peter Caruso does ask a good question here. What are BC's odds of beating Georgia Tech next week?
Man, I mean, Georgia Tech is a weird team because
their defense is dog garbage.
Yeah, it's tough. I think that they're probably going to get beat to hell by Miami tonight. They just lost to Bowling Green, so things. If they get really beat bad by Miami tonight, they could just kind of be out on this season. I know they have a new head coach, and I think he's better than Jeff Collins was, but they might just be kind of demoralized at this point. They had I can't remember their schedule off the top of my head, but I think they beat an FCS team, and then they obviously lost to Louisville in week 1. I think they played Ole Miss, and Ole Miss kind of ran away from them. So, I mean, it's weird because, again, like Haynes King was having a pretty good season until that Bowling Green game where things just fell apart. So he's a decent quarterback. They have some decent players, but I don't know. I mean, again, BC is hard to trust. Again, they did just almost lose to Army. So, I think that game, I think BC coming off the bye is really big. You'll ostensibly get Ryan O'Keefe and Ozzie Trapilo back. So that should be helpful. Maybe make some adjustments on both sides of the ball for the offense. Maybe you lean harder into this kind of quarterback option game on defense. Not sure what you do because they're kind of already locked into their scheme as it is. So we'll have to see. I think their chances are probably about as good as I had them going into this season because I wasn't really sure what to make of Georgia Tech. I knew that they had a bit of a talent deficiency, but ostensibly so did BC. So, I think you lean Georgia Tech because it's, and again, it's probably negated because you would lean Georgia Tech because it's a home game for them, but BC's off the bye. So, it's kind of a toss-up, I would say, honestly.
All right. So I'm going to rip off a couple of comments that don't need comments. So, responses. So I'll just read them off. Len Suber says, I was sweating bullets watching this game. Good comeback for BC. Joe Lenteno says poorly timed penalties. Theodore Edson says still on track for 9-3, just saying, and then said TC's interception was a complete and then facepalm. But our last comment that I wanted to put up was where is it? Sorry. Joe Lenteno, who said another game in which BC played to the level of their opponent. I don't know. I think they play, you have to play Army's level of opponent. Like that's the thing that they do. Like you can't just go out there and bomb them off the field.
Yeah. I don't think that, and I think the rain obviously played a factor, but I think that's more of a factor of Army kind of dragging you down where, as opposed to BC kind of just falling on their faces and doing this, and again, like, I think it's impressive that BC was able to play Army's game better than they did. They ran the ball consistently and better than Army did. They committed fewer penalties. They were more reliable on short yardage situations. And again, that's why I was concerned about this game, because I was like, okay, BC has to play this other style of football and not let Army drag them down in terms of that style of play. But they were able to, run the ball so effectively. And obviously, and again, because this team has, some issues, they're not going to be perfect. They're not going to score on every drive. So you have some of those mistakes. You have drives that aren't going to go anywhere. You have that drive where really, again, BC committed 3 penalties and 2 of them came in one drive where one was a holding penalty that it was the right call, but I mean, it was pretty, I would say that one was close. And the block in the back was, again, probably the right call, but it's pretty close. So and again, I think Hafley talked about this a lot. It's not all penalties are created equal. Some are guys just playing hard, and it's you're trying to, finish a block and it doesn't work and you get called. So I'm fine with that. I forget what the other penalty was, but I think it was just it was a false. I actually remember it was a false start on Kyle Hergel in a pretty key situation, actually. That one I'm a little frustrated by because Hergel's a veteran player and he has a lot of those false starts. And yeah, the umpire trucked. I assume they meant trucked the human joystick because, man, That ref, he hit the right stick down on Castellanos on that designed run. Yeah,
that play is never gonna live down. I mean, I'm sure he's not gonna live it down either from his teammates.
I mean, that's when you have a quarterback who's what 5'10", 196 against a ref. That's a big ref. That's like a 6'3", 220 some pound ref. Like
he didn't even move.
Yeah, get that guy some snaps at linebacker.
And then Todd P says, also Thomas C can't throw in the rain, small hands, which is a concern going forward in a New England team. Okay, can I jump in on this and you can jump in with last comments? It was like a monsoon there. Like, I don't think anyone could have thrown in that game. Like, it was, maybe you could have got a few guys, but when you have a guy that can run the ball and not risk throwing it with issues with the rain, you do that every single time. You play to what your strengths are in a situation like that. I saw someone on Twitter say, or on our Facebook say, do they know what the pass is? I think that's stupid. Like, if you're throwing the ball,
yeah, I
think you're taking the ball out of your biggest strength's hands.
Yeah, I think that they tried to pass longer than they needed to, honestly. Like, I think that this, I don't know if this is 100% true. I think it's something to monitor. I think this was a unique game in terms of the amount of rain because it looked like it was just absolutely pouring. So that's part of it. You have Castellanos had that play where he tries to throw and the ball just flies out of his hands. So then, and after that, they were like, okay, we're done messing around. We're going to stop throwing the pass. We're going to stop passing the ball. And this comment didn't like the lack of a short pass in the game, nothing in the middle and capitalizing on the run game. Need to figure out the tight end position TE would eat today. I'm not sure who TE is, unless that's referencing
tight end.
I know, but I thought it was referencing a specific tight end. But I mean, I think that again, they are very reliant on George Takis being a run blocker, which he had a decent day today from what I can remember. They tried to get Franklin in the flat off of play action in the first drive, and again, it was raining so hard. And yeah, I think BC was right to abandon the pass day because they were so worried about just guys dropping the ball, Castellanos not being able to throw the ball. And again, I think the weather of this game is more of an outlier than the norm. And again, this is his like fifth or sixth start, so it's something he can grow to. And he probably does have smaller hands than the average quarterback because he is just a smaller person. But I don't think anybody's suggesting this, but I don't think that any of the lack of passing today is something we need to be concerned about. To the point of switching back to Emmett Moorhead because
someone else is referring to that.
No, I know. But nobody here is. But the fact of the matter is that from what the little that we've seen of Emmett Moorhead this season, and the fact that he was still pretty inconsistent last year, is that I think a lot of the issues with the passing game would not be solved by putting him in, and he removes the ability for you to have this explosive running game, both designed and as a scrambler.
Right. I was going to say, because even though you like folks that are like trying to grasp this game might see this as like they went one dimensional, but they weren't one dimensional.
I mean, well they were, but that one dimension was working.
Right. They're one dimensional in a different type of running game, right?
Yes. Yeah.
If it was Emmett Moorhead out there, you could have risked fumbles more often, and they probably would have been much more one dimension, much more single, like,
yeah.
focused.
And like Emmett can, scramble for a few yards here and there, but you just can't have that. You just don't have that explosiveness that Castellanos has, where, that play where the first touchdown where it's a boot play action. He just sees the lane up the middle and goes. Comment, Garwo looked a little dinged up. Any info on that?
I didn't notice that.
I think maybe he was just probably tired from running the ball all day, and then Robichaux was healthy, and they know that he is very reliable in these short yardage needed conversion situations. So I don't remember seeing him limping or being hurt any.
He didn't look dinged up to me.
And even if he is, we wouldn't get a straight answer on info for it. So,
all right, Mitch, we got to bounce on this because I got two kids waiting for me upstairs. As many of you saw on Twitter, at halftime, my 5-year-old locked my 2-year-old in the bathroom, and I spent a half hour trying to get my 2-year-old out of the bathroom. That was fun. I almost had to get the firefighter across the street to help get him out. But they're waiting for me upstairs, and we have to go. And Mitch and I will have much more on tomorrow's show to talk about BC defeating Army 27-24. And we'll talk about their bowl likeliness, where the rest of the season goes, other thoughts. We're going to have a ton more analysis. Mitch, where can people find you?
You can find me at Mitchell T. Wolf, WOLFE on Twitter. I think we will probably have my 3 stars of the game up for tomorrow. I did tweet them out, but I'll break it down a little more once I get some more stats. We'll talk a little more about the scheme. And then we got the bye week this week, so we'll have the rewatch. Oh, I mean, hopefully CBS will post it. Somebody will post this game on YouTube so I can rewatch it. But if not, we'll do some bye week stuff where we look at both sides of the ball, find some things that defense or both sides of the ball are doing really well, investigate them, explain why they're doing them and why they're so successful. And of course, you can find that all on Eagle Insider.
Yeah, and check out Eagle Insider right now. We're going to have hockey coverage tonight. BC Hockey Blogger has previews up. He's going to recap the game against national champion Quinnipiac. We'll have all that up as well. This is AJ Black. Thank you all for following. Make sure you hit a like on this podcast and subscribe to us on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. For Mitch, this is AJ. We got to run. I'll see you all soon. Take care.